Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. We are going without a webcam today, and we are on my free-to-play account. Now, this is a sub-series that I do of my main series that I do on my channel called Free Smiles, where I show my progression and basically a series of me doing a free-to-play account. Now, this series, I pretty much try to go over every single faction wars that I defeat, the stage 21, showing you how I do it with the champions that I have, along with the gear and some strategies, some tips, and voiceover along the way. Now, for this one, we're going to be doing Undead, which is one of the hardest factions in the game. Again, this is a 100% free-to-play account, and most of the champions I use are champions that I gathered from doing fusion events, from shard pulling and whatnot. So there are a lot of great options you can use for Undead. It's a very powerful faction. There's a lot of champions here you can use that'll make the run a lot easier, and I would still say Undead is definitely one of the hardest factions in the game as far as defeating faction wars for the first time. But if you have a lot of champions to play around with, then it'll make that process a lot more easier. So the champions that I use to defeat this faction are Frozen Banshee, Ultimate Death Knight, Morrigan, Vlad the Nightborn, and Netheril. Now, one thing I do want to mention is, as you can see, we do have 4 legendaries that I use here, of course, and I have 1 rare champion that I use, but 3 of these champions that I got for free basically, well, the Vlad and the Morrigan I got from fusions, and the Ultimate Death Knight was a daily login reward not too long ago. But Netheril is the one champion that I use for basically what he was bringing to the table was his turn meter manipulation with the Bat Swarm here, decreased turn meter by 75%, which is huge. And also he has a triple hitter on the A1 that he has a chance to land poisons, along with some more AoE abilities here with stun. Now, I did use a stun set for him, and I wanted to take full advantage of the multi-hit he provides here, along with just a fail backup save for having another stun capability. But I didn't build him with damage or anything like that. As you can see, the stats are 165 speed, 208 accuracy, which is just enough accuracy to land consistently. Ideally, I would like to get to 220, but I just use him as is, just like this. So that's pretty much all he was doing here, bringing the stun, the turn meter manipulation, and some poisons. And over to my next champion, Vlad the Nightborn. Now, this champion was part of the fusion back in the day, not too long ago, but he did get buffed recently, and he is a lot stronger than he was before, but that's not how I utilized him. I didn't really build him in damage or anything like that. 223 accuracy, 165 speed, and I tried to stack damage where I could, but not really ideal. And I threw him in his lifesteal set just in case, because I wanted to make sure that he can get his HP back if he gets hit. And what he's bringing to the table is some destroy max HP on the A1 and some self-heal capability. He also has a leech on the A2, which is really good and combos well with your War Master if you can hit on a champion that has a leech debuff on them. And also he has a chance to reduce some turn meter as well. And over to his A3, which was a huge help to me during this fight, is AoE defense down on all enemies. And he also puts the perfect veil on himself for 2 turns so he can stay safe. And he also has a revive on death on the champion when he kills an enemy, but we didn't really utilize this much at all. And for the Masteries for Vlad, this is all I have done. I just did a little bit of Minotaur so I can get some accuracy, some easy accuracy out of the way here. And let me go back to, yeah, I did the same with Netheril as well. Some easy accuracy because you'll get some there and you'll get some here. And over to the next champion, Morrigan, who is basically like a Lysandra, very good at turn meter manipulation. And I threw him in Relentless Gear and a speed set to make her as fast as I could. And she's going to be providing a lot of turn meter manipulation. So she has that 253 speed, 266 accuracy, which is more than enough. And I try to stack as much HP as I could on her as well. And for the A1, we have a decreased speed, which is huge against the boss fights and against particular champions if you don't want them to take a turn. And for the second ability here, we have the 75% chance to steal all buffs from target enemy, which we didn't really utilize much, but also has a chance to place fear, true fear on enemies for 1 turn, which is also pretty huge. And then for the A3, we have the 75% chance to decrease all turn meters of all enemies by 20%, fills the turn meters of all allies by 20%, and places a 30% speed increase buff on all allies for 2 turns. Now, I don't have her booked at all because I felt like it was enough without her being booked. And yeah, so over to her Masteries, I do have her built in a pretty typical PvE build for champions to put out some damage with War Master here. And also the Evil Eye, which is going to help a lot with the turn meter decrease in the beginning of the hit. And yeah, that's pretty much it here. And on to our next champion, we have the Ultimate Death Knight, of course. Now, this guy was pretty much, I would say he's the MVP of taking hits, because he's going to be providing a lot of protection for your other champions that get hit. So I do have him at 6 stars. He's not at level 60 just yet, but I threw him in as much HP as I could and regeneration set so he can stay healthy, because he's going to be taking a lot of damage. And I did put some accuracy on him as well, because he does provide some debuff capabilities. Now, Ultimate Death Knight, he's got an Provoke on the A1, which is really helpful, especially against the Valkyrie wave. And for the A2, attacks all enemies, has a chance to place 50% decrease attack debuff for 2 turns, which is huge, and also a chance to place fear on legendary champions. And over to the A3, now I didn't have a dedicated healer on this team at all, so Ultimate Death Knight was pretty much going to be my dedicated healer, well, sort of. So he plays a shield buff on all allies along with a 15% continuous heal buff on all allies for 2 turns, so that's going to be topping off some of my champions, making sure they stay alive and healthy. And the value of shield buff is proportional to the champion's defense. And yeah, so this is the biggest thing here. This is what makes him the MVP tank. Whenever allies attacked, has a 100% chance of completely blocking 1 hit, decreasing the incoming damage to 0. This champion will receive that damage instead. The chances of blocking a hit and redirecting debuffs decreases 50% if the attacker is a boss. Does not work if the attack on the ally was an AoE attack. So this is going to help out a lot, especially if the enemy ends up taking a turn, then you have the Ultimate Death Knight taking that hit instead. And especially against a boss fight, really helpful. And increases the champion's HP and defense speed by 10% for each stat ally. Okay, so and he also has the defense aura, which is not really helpful against a boss fight because this boss ignores defense completely. This is what makes this boss one of the hardest bosses in the faction wars. Now over to the last champion. Now this is my lonesome only damage dealer, because pretty much the way I take down all these enemies is with her poisons. Now Frozen Banshee is a fantastic poisoner. She's really good in clan boss, of course, but she's going to be providing a lot of poisons. For the A1, she has a double hitter, and each hit has a 80%, 100% when bugged, of placing 5% poison debuff for 2 turns if they're under poison sensitivity. So the way you would combo this is with activating this first on the enemy you want to take poisons, and then you start hammering with the A1 here to stack as many poisons as you can. And for her masteries here, we have all the way down to the War Master, another pretty typical PvE build. And I forgot to show the Ultimate Death Knight, which I did pretty similarly. And I went with a different route here because of the shield he provides, but more or less the same. And for the gear here, I just went with the lifesteal for her as well and some immortal, just to make sure she can stay alive and healthy. Alright, so here we go. We have the Morgan in the lead, along with the Vlad, the Frozen Banshee, the Nethro, and the Ultimate Death Knight. So starting off here, what I want to do is turn meter manipulate with the Morgan. I want to try to control these champions as long as I can and make sure they don't get a turn. So we're going to be opening with the AoE defense down from the Vlad. And right here, I'm going to be using my stun or my turn meter manipulation. It doesn't really matter which one, but I want to make sure that they get locked and stunned. And we have 4 champions stunned here. So we're going to be targeting the Black Knight as much as we can, but we want to target the Martyr as well, because the Martyr is going to be one of the biggest threats in the first wave, because she provides provoke, counterattack, which is very annoying to deal with. So we're going to try to target the Black Knight as much as we can and the Martyrs to try to take them down. Alright, so now that we have just a few champions left here, a couple, and they have really low HP, so there's no need for me to use any of my other abilities. I just want to keep using my A1, so I can save all my abilities for the next fight, the next wave, which is going to be the toughest challenge, or one of the toughest challenges of this entire faction. Now, Valkyrie waves plus Warcaster is really annoying to deal with. I want to make sure I can try to stop the Valkyries from taking a turn, or at least control them by stunning them, by just reducing their turn meters and whatnot. So I'm going to try to target the Valkyries first because they are a big threat. Try to get them down with that decreased speed debuff. And now I want to just try to control all these champions as much as I can. So with these two champions left to go, I'm going to be using the same strategy I did in wave 1, where I'm just going to be using my A1 abilities for all these remaining hits so I can have all my abilities ready to go at the boss fight on the next wave. Alright, so for this boss fight, there is no adds that he has with him, but for the A1, attacks one enemy will ignore target's defense. This is really powerful and it's scary because he can just one-shot your champions. So against this fight, ideally you would like to go with as much HP as you can on your champions. But in my case, I do have an ultimate Death Knight who can protect my other champions and he can take the hit instead at times. But for the A2, removes all debuffs from this champion, places True Fear debuff on a random enemy for 1 turn, places a stun debuff on all enemies except that enemy for 1 turn. These debuffs cannot be resisted and grants an extra turn. And whoever True Fears is going to be the one that takes that hit from him from the A1 as soon as he goes again. And for the A3, fills his champion's turn meter by 2% for every 1% of the HP they lose when attacked. This is counted from the damage taken per hit. Now for this fight, I'm not going to be doing that crazy amount of damage. I have to literally tank and spank him while controlling his turn meter as much as I can, while trying to stay alive with my champions and the protection that Death Knight provides to some degree. So I'm just going to let the rest of this play out. So kick back, relax, and I hope you guys enjoy the rest of this video. And if you guys do enjoy my videos, if you do enjoy my content, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and drop a comment down below. It helps out a lot. It really does, and I appreciate it very much. And I'll see you all in the next video.